We're up to number 3 on the top 10 coaches for 2023. And let me review very quickly, if I can remember. It's getting harder each day because there's one more that I have to remember. Number 10 was Doug Peterson of the Jaguars. Number 9, Mike Vrabel of the Titans. Number 8, Kyle Shanahan of the 49ers. Number 7, Sean McVay of the Rams. Number 6, Sean Payton of the Broncos. 5, Pete Carroll of the Seahawks. 4, John Harbaugh of the Ravens. There are 3 left, and I'll tell you who they are in no particular order. Mike Tomlin, Andy Reid, and Bill Belichick. Those are the last 3. Apologies to anyone who was omitted. Number 3 is Bill Belichick. I know that may sound sacrilegious, but it's where we are right now. Bill Belichick's the one who had the bright idea to use the Frankenstein monster approach at offense last year with a coordinator who didn't even have the title, who has been a defensive guy his entire career in Matt Patricia, and to have a quarterbacks coach in Joe Judge. It was remedial offense. It was an embarrassment. Robert Kraft, the owner of the team, has been essentially acknowledged. He hasn't used language like that, but he knows it was a disaster. We know it was a disaster. And I remember last year, one of the few times I was right with foresight. I said if anybody else was trying to pull this other than Bill Belichick, we would be saying, has this person lost his mind? So I don't know. Has Bill Belichick lost his fastball? Was his fastball Tom Brady? We had that item not that long ago, and I talked about it in this space. Andy Reid versus Bill Belichick. Who's the greatest of all time? Andy Reid has compiled his wins with a bunch of different quarterbacks, and now he's settled into the guy who may be the greatest to ever play the game. Belichick did all of his work at a high level with Tom Brady. Since Brady, 2 seasons, no playoff appearances. Since Brady, 1 playoff appearance, 47-17 loss. Since his last playoff victory, his last postseason win, Super Bowl 53, Bill Belichick has not won a postseason game. Andy Reid has won 2 Super Bowls and appeared in another one. So Belichick, and look, there should be no shame in being number 3. But if we'd have done this list a couple of years ago, Belichick's number 1, without question, greatest coach of all time in any sport. That's what we thought. And that pivot point of Brady leaving, what does it mean for him? What does it mean for Belichick? Well, Brady won a Super Bowl, and Brady got to the division round the next year, the wild card round the next year. Belichick's 1 for 3 with no playoff wins. So he's sinking a little bit. And, I've been saying ever since Robert Kraft said what he said at the league meetings in Arizona, when he was asked, and I'm paraphrasing, but the question was, can Bill Belichick survive another non-playoff season, or will he stay with the team until he catches Don Shula for the all-time wins record? And Robert Kraft said, not, are you kidding me? Forget about it. Like casual conversations for trading Matthew Stafford. Forget about it. We don't talk about that. We're not doing it. He didn't say, forget about it. Bill Belichick's here as long as he wants to be. Bill Belichick definitely will be here to catch Don Shula. He said, well, we want all of our players to get statistics, but we care about winning. Well, the statistic here is winning. But the message from Robert Kraft was and is, we're not going to keep him around to get these wins if the losses are going to outweigh the wins, and we're not going to get to the playoffs, and we're not going to have a chance to get Super Bowl number 7. We have to be successful. We have to be competitive. And I think that he enters this year on the hot seat. Now, what would it take to get him fired? At a minimum, no playoff appearance. Now, if they get to the playoffs and go one and done, it could be that there's something that happens behind the scenes that causes the relationship to fall apart. Maybe Robert Kraft makes some demands that Bill Belichick doesn't want to comply with, and they just decide to go their separate ways. If they don't get to the playoffs, that to me is the first step. Then how many games do they win? How embarrassing is it? Do they finish in 4th place in the division for the first time since Bill Belichick's first season with the team in 2000? Second longest streak in the league right now, 22 years of not finishing in last place. If they get left in the dust of the AFC East, that'd be a factor, wouldn't it? Anyway, he's still number 3. That leaves Tomlin and Reid at number 1 and number 2. And you'll find out tomorrow who number 1 is, because I'll tell you who number 2 is. And look, I still think Belichick is one of the great coaches of all time. And he just keeps going and he just keeps going. But it may be that he ends up going somewhere else. And that to me is the great question. Beyond how much time 6 Super Bowl wins buys someone when it starts to go the other way. What's the shelf life for being non-competitive post-Brady, post-Super Bowls? How long can you go? Beyond that, if Belichick would be fired, or if they would come up with something, and, Robert Kraft maybe wouldn't fire him, but he'd give him a chance to resign, or it would be, we've decided after all these years, it's in everyone's best interest to start again. I mean, it would be sold in a way that wouldn't be so jarring as Robert Kraft fires Bill Belichick. I'm convinced of that. Where would Belichick go? What would he do next? I say this about Tomlin. I said it about Vrabel, and I think it applies to several other coaches right now. If that person somehow would get fired, other teams would hire him immediately. There'd be teams that have a head coach they're currently happy with that would say, we'd be even happier with this other guy who became available that we didn't expect to become available. So I don't know what would happen with Belichick. There's been a thought that at some point he would end up in one of those elevated executive VP of football operations roles like Bill Parcells, Mike Holmgren, Tom Coughlin. I think what we've learned about that is that football coaches can never stop being football coaches. So you've got to have a very secure, patient head coach in your building who will work with a coach emeritus who has some other title, but who is still a football coach and who has been a damn good football coach and is dealing with the fact that he's no longer a football coach, so he's no longer as relevant as he was. So one way to stay relevant is to micromanage your head coach and to be the coach of the coach and to tell the coach how to coach, and that doesn't work for anybody. So would Belichick do that? I've heard that he'd like, and I don't know that this is accurate. I just know that this is the talk that makes its way around the grapevine. Get a position like that with a little slice of equity in the team. Maybe easier said than done, both as it relates to setting it up and as to making it work. But I can't imagine him not coaching. Can't imagine it. And there are plenty of teams out there that could do a lot worse. But I think what you need to have is an owner who's willing to just throw the keys to Bill Belichick for a few years, too. You got to give him time to get his systems to where they need to be. And one thing that we've learned, he needs a good quarterback. You need a Tom Brady or someone like that. It maybe was Brady. I don't want to give him too much credit, but look at all those close games they were in the postseason. And it's just Brady's will to win. Brady's life force that would take over and he'd make it happen. I remember way back in Super Bowl 36 when the Rams tied it up. The Patriots got it back with some time left in regulation, and John Madden accurately observing that maybe the safe thing to do, the smart thing to do, the right thing to do is just play for overtime. He didn't know that Tom Brady was capable of coming out in a situation like that and taking the team down the field and getting them in field goal range, but he thrived on those moments. Helps a coach win. Helps a coach end up being regarded as pretty damn good if you have a guy like that around. So, number 3, again, nothing to be ashamed of, but not what we've come to expect from Bill Belichick. And I guess the question is, by next year, if we do this list again next year, will he be higher, will he be lower, or will he still be at number 3? Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.